Let me begin by honoring my elders, Grandfather William Commanda, Grandfather Douglas Cardinal, and our teacher, Wiaru Waita from Cusco, Peru, the Chasqui of the Aquarian age. Chasqui meaning spiritual messenger. I honor the Algonquin grandmothers, the traditional grandmothers with whom I work, Grandmother Jane Chartrand and Grandmother Jacqueline Sarazay, and all the other traditional Algonquin grandmothers. It would take me about a few minutes to name. What I'd like to do is actually, I'd like to start with a prayer. I'd like to start with the mantra of unification, just to have the vibration overarch what I'm going to speak to. The sons and daughters of men and women are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love which underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate, and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all humanity love. Miigwech. I noticed when I was contemplating certain headlines this morning, that in the word virus is the word us. And in the word Jesus is the word us. And I thought, wow, that's pretty revealing, isn't it? That juxtaposition. And it moved me to think that I had decided to talk about the death and resurrection on Good Friday. And it crossed my mind that one could identify death and resurrection as the mortal play on immortality. Because if you really contemplated, the death and the resurrection speak to two different things. And the death and resurrection that I seek to speak about is an ancient story. It goes way back in antiquity. It's not just the drama of the Master Jesus on the cross and then resurrected. It is a play. It's a play that culminates in many, many plays that have been put on before and go back in time, specifically to the Egyptians, specifically to the mysteries of the Egyptians. But before I get into that aspect of it, I just want to do a little foundational overview. What I'm going to speak about today comes mostly from the teachings of the Inka through our teacher Wiaru Waita in Cusco, Peru, from esoteric books such as Helena Blavatsky and Alice Bailey and Rudolf Steiner. There's one book in particular I highly recommend for those who might be interested in what's going to be spoken about here today. And that is this book here. I know you can't see it because it's upside down, but it's called The Pagan Christ by Tom Harper. And the reason I highly recommend this to your knowing is if you're interested at all in understanding the relationship between the mysteries of the ancient ones and how it relates to the story of the Master Jesus, you'll find it all in that book. In The Pagan Christ, he speaks about two specific authors that he relied upon for his information. One was a man named Gerald Massey, who wrote in the 1840s and 1850s. And another one named Albert Boyd Kuhn, K-U-H-N, who wrote in the 50s and 60s. And their basic works were to demonstrate the relationship between Christianity and pagan religion, specifically the root of the Egyptian mysteries. In understanding where we're at today, it's useful to know a little bit about the background. And the background is much, much broader and more expansive than centuries. We're in what's called the second solar system. And the first solar system is the Mother Earth. At that time is the present moon. These teachings come from Willaroo that he has given to us over the course of many years. So in that first solar system, each solar system consists of 7 solar races. And on that solar system, they went all the way through 7 solar races. And at the end, they were not able to spiritualize. They found themselves embedded in materialism. And human beings at that point in time were 4 or 5 feet tall. They married at 10 or 12. They died at 25, 30. And eventually the light was withdrawn from that experiment of the solar system, and humanity did not spiritualize. And the moon stands as witness to that previous solar system, and appreciate that we were likely the animals on that experiment of spiritualization. And today in this solar system, we're the human beings. There's a lot of karma that comes from that solar system that exists in this solar system. It's not something that people often think of, the karma of a previous solar system, but it in fact, it exists. It's important to know that, because we tend to think only of our existence in terms of this life or a few lives before or whatever, but it's much more ancient than that. So in this solar system, Willaroo explains that we are the 5th of 7 solar races. The first solar race and the second solar race were in the womb of the Mother Earth, because we are all born in the womb of the Mother Earth. And we were spiritual. And there was a desire to come onto the surface of the earth. And this is expressed in the story of Adam and Eve. We were in paradise, in the inner earth. But such a desire to come out onto the surface of the earth expressed itself in the 3rd solar race, which is the land of Mu, which is called Lemuria. And in each solar race, there are cycles. Spring, summer, autumn, and fall. Autumn and winter. And so there are ages: Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, and Iron Age. Each of these cycles are really determined in the cosmos, because they're cosmic cycles. Imagine just for a moment taking a piece of stone and throwing it into calm water and watch the ripples. And so from the center comes these ripples of existence, of these ripples of influence that in the end impact the place where we are, the earth. So from the perspective of Lemuria, the civilization rose to a great height, and then it began to devolve into materialism, and it sunk into the Pacific. And the land of Mu was no more. The remnants of it you will see in Hawaii, and in those incredibly elongated statues in Easter Island. And then subsequently comes the 4th solar race, Atlantis. And Atlantis is again rising to a height of great civilization and then devolving, going into materialism, misuse mostly of energy. And in the misuse of that energy brought on the fall of Atlantis, and it fell into the Atlantic Ocean. And the remnants of it can be said to be United Kingdom, the Bahamas, Greece. All of these areas would have been, that's how vast the continent of Atlantis was. And we are the 5th solar race. We are the Aryans, or Ares, the constellation Ares, not Hitler's denomination of Aryan, but from the constellation Ares. So we're the Aryan race, And as you can see, we have risen to a certain height, and we are and have been for quite a long time devolving more deeply into materialism as things go along. In all of these civilizations and solar races, we have a golden age, a silver age, a bronze age, and an iron age. And at the outset of a golden age come divine beings who participate on the Mother Earth with humanity. And in that interaction, the spiritual laws are laid down, and then the high ones look to us to continue it, and they withdraw. Now, Wilderoo has explained to us many times that you have to understand in terms of these races and in terms of these previous civilizations, that we must take into account the idea of dimensions. So let's take into account the idea of dimensions and posit for a moment that there are seven dimensions, and the seventh we would consider to be the highest. And so where are we in relation to that is we are in the third dimension, height, breadth, and width. And in the third dimension on the Mother Earth, we're presently under 48 cosmic laws. The law of electricity, the law of gravity, the law of attraction and repulsion, the law of return, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to recite all 48, but the point being that these are laws of nature that exist in the third dimension that impact on our existence. And Wilderoo explains in the fourth dimension, the laws are half as many. So in the fourth dimension, the laws are only 24. And the fourth dimension exists in the inner earth. So if you conceive of this just for a moment, if you look at the backdrop that's behind me, what you're looking at is an external representation of sacred consciousness. And that within the earth, underneath what you're seeing, are crystal cities and advanced beings who reside in the fourth dimension. This is throughout the Mother Earth. In the Himalayas, you will note that swamis and yogis continually go into the mountains and find themselves in caves, advancing their spiritual practices and becoming enlightened. This also occurs in the Andes. In the mountain range in Colombia reside the Kogi. The Kogi reside at about 16,000 feet, and their elders are really advanced ones, and they live on the surface of the earth. But they are in connection with people in the inner earth. So crystal cities exist all around the Mother Earth, and they're here behind us in Machu Picchu. They're in the Gatineau Hills. They're everywhere on the Mother Earth. There are points of sacredness of the fourth dimension. So imagine it's paradisiacal because there's only 24 cosmic laws. Therefore, life is much easier. It's the paradise spoken of in the story of Adam and Eve, who left paradise, tempted by materialism, and went out into the material world. This is background, if you will, to beginning to understand and perhaps put one in the knowing of the idea that we live in a cosmos, that in essence the Mother Earth is part of a much grander scheme, a much grander undertaking, if you will. And the Bhagavad Gita says basically that if we only understood that the material world is only 1/4 of creation, that the other 3/4 of creation is heavenly, we would come to understand a bit about what we're missing and why we have such a desire to know more, and why we have such a desire to deepen our own spiritual journey. Because the promise is a graduation to a much higher realm of perfection, of bliss, and as the Hindu call it, and the Buddhists call it, the knowing of samadhi on the way to nirvana. So nirvana is considered by the Buddhists and by the Hindus to be the highest state of knowing, that we actually spiritualize as a human being. And this brings me to saying that here we are at the end of the Iron Age in the 5th solar race, faced with the same prospects of Atlantis and Lemuria. And in the shifting from the Iron Age to the Golden Age, there is a purification. This is cosmic. It's cyclical. It happens over and over again. And so what we are going through, if you will, or what we are witnessing presently, is the announcement of this purification. And what it is to bring about the proper environment, if you will, for the dawning of the new golden age. That's why the other night I read out the lyrics of the dawning of the age of Aquarius. You know, go and look them up again. Just look up lyrics for the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And look at the words very carefully, because those words are inspired. They come from a higher dimension into the minds of the people who wrote and sang that song. It's so appropriate at this particular moment. In understanding the cosmic aspect of our existence comes a better understanding of the relationship that you're seeking to make when you're talking about making a relationship with spirit, and coming to the understanding of the unfoldment, if you will, of these stupendous events certainly makes things a little bit different in your own psychology and in your own spiritual unfolding. I want to take this opportunity, I think, to tell you that from my own perspective, from my perspective, I was raised Roman Catholic. When I was in grade 9 and grade 10, I used to serve Mass maybe twice a day. I thought I was sitting next to the Holy Spirit. And by the time grade 12 rolled around, I'd become a questioner. I questioned what was being told to me. I was no longer with the dogma, if you will. It didn't resonate with me. I didn't appreciate, perhaps, what I thought were conundrums that were being offered to me. But I bless the Roman Catholic faith for making me a seeker. It was something that always gnawed away at me, was what was the real truth? What were the real answers? Where was one going to find that truth? And I was very familiar with all of the sacraments of the Catholic Church, all of the Easter rituals, Lent, all of the things that the Catholic Church put forward as ceremony and rituals. And I have to say, never really fully understanding. Knowing the stories and knowing the dramas, but not quite really understanding. But that made me thirsty. And I just want to say to all of you, the more thirsty you are to know, the better it is for you, because it will move you closer and closer to the answer. I've always found that books just tumble into my hands, and there is another enlightenment, if you will, regarding something that I was contemplating. And it comes over and over again, and I attribute that to the thirst. I attribute that to the idea of wanting to know. Not wanting to know so that I could be ahead of the game, but wanting to know so I could not only help myself, but help others to understand. When we met Willaroo, I had been studying all sorts of things. Alice Bailey, Helena Blavatsky, Rudolf Steiner, the list goes on and on and on. I had studied Buddhism, I had studied Hinduism, I had studied Mohammedanism, I had studied Judaism, and I knew Catholicism, so that helped me with the Christian aspect of things. And of course, I came to a rapid conclusion that all of the sacred scriptures of those various religions really said the same thing. That if you examine them deeply enough, you would come to realize that they said the same thing. In regard to this foundational concept, when we met Willaroo, he introduced us to this concept of the Inka Cross. And the concept for him was to say, look, the Inka Cross represents what you need to know for the unfoldment of spiritual consciousness. He said they're embodied in the 3 steps. He said the first step is the elimination of the egos. The egos represented in the 7 cardinal sins: lust, anger, pride, envy, greed, laziness, and gluttony. So I'll come back to that in a moment. The second step is personified in sacred alchemy or sacred matrimony between a man and a woman, understanding the actual energy of sexuality and understanding its relationship to the 7 major chakras in the body and the transmutation of energy from the sacral center to the throat, to the understanding of communication at its highest, most perfect. And the third step was teaching in unconditional love what you learned from practicing the first 2, elimination of the ego and sacred alchemy. He told us that the sign for the elimination of the ego was a crystal skull. And the crystal skull was something that one carried with oneself to remember, to put to death the egos. Sacred alchemy, the sign was what is known as the caduceus of Mercury, which is the medical symbol that you see today, the staff with the twin serpents entwined around the staff. So the staff represents the chakra system, and the twin serpents represent Ida and Pingali, 2 nervous channels that emanate from the sacral center and surround the 7 chakras and bring about a transmutation of the fires. So in the Inka Cross is embedded, from the Inka perspective, the teachings for humanity in terms of the emergence of consciousness and the raising of consciousness. And there are teachings to be given in relation to each of those steps. I'm not going to concentrate on the second and third step too much, but I do want to concentrate on the first step, because this is what the teachers have told us is the most important for humanity right now, in being able to heighten their awareness and heighten what it is that will assist them in bringing about their relationship to spirit in a much more deep and profound way. So Willaroo says, listen, if you want to know the 7 egos intimately and how those egos end up controlling you and putting you into a situation where you're not in control, the inner ruler is not in control, but that the egos are. So assign an animal to each ego, and there, from that, be able to visualize how we feed those animals. So lust is the black dog, anger is the bull, pride is the peacock, laziness is a monkey in South America called the puño puño, sloth-like, so lazy, can hardly peel the banana to feed itself. Pride, I said it was peacock. Greed and gluttony is taken by the pig. So that one's pretty easy to understand. I don't know if I missed anything there, but greed, lust, anger, pride, envy. Envy is the seagull. Take your French fries. So imagine just for a moment then, this is a man, because it's much easier to visualize this in terms of a man. So a man's walking down the beach and he sees a woman in a bikini, and immediately the black dog comes out, the lust, He doesn't see the woman as her goddess energy. He doesn't see the beauty and sacredness of the woman. He only has the thought of lust. Goes a little bit further down the beach, and someone yells at him, you know, you owe me money, I hate you. And the black dog retreats, and the bull comes out, the anger. Walks a little further down the beach, and someone says, you know, you're the greatest person that ever walked the face of the earth. And the anger retreats, and the pride, the peacock, comes fluttering out. And on, and on, and on. So we end up in a situation where, if we really think about it, the inner ruler has not been awoken. The egos are in the reins of the chariot, if you will. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita said to Arjuna, who was the charioteer with the chariot and the horses, and Krishna says to Arjuna, the reins, this is what you have to have in order to control where you're going. So you have to be in charge of the reins. The reins cannot be given over to anything in order for you to achieve what it is that you wish to achieve. So in this same way, Willaroo was teaching that the Inca taught that the elimination of the egos is critical to making space. And you're probably all wondering how I'm linking this to death and resurrection, but it'll come. The most important part for me is that we all operate, if you will, on this same foundational basis, that we understand the input that the Inca made in relation to this civilization that they built in South America in order for them to put forward to humanity teachings that are critical to the idea of their unfoldment. One of the things I did in the meditation last week with everyone was ask them to contemplate something I'm about to read by closing their eyes and visualizing Machu Picchu. That it's inspired now that we have Machu Picchu as a background here. So what I want to do right now is I want to, having given you just a little thing about the teachings of the Inca and the elimination of the 7 egos, I'll add one more thing before I say this. Very important to know that in the teaching of the eliminations of the egos, there is something called transmission of impression, and the existence of your mother and father that will allow people to understand better what it means to eliminate the egos. So first of all, in our meditation, we talked about the idea that Willaroo, when he was initiated, was told, this is your father, the third eye, and this is your mother, the heart. This is wisdom, and this is love. So within the framework of the existence of the divine within every human being has a father and a mother. And the father and mother can help each and every one of us when it comes to the idea of eliminating the egos. Because we call upon our father and mother to assist us in order to grow in consciousness, in order to see how we can eliminate the egos. Transmission of impression. Well, we all know that there are impressions throughout the world, and these impressions come to us, it's invisible. It's energy, it's vibration, and it's mostly invisible. When someone pulls our trigger, we have what's known as a reaction. And normally that reaction is one of the egos, pride, anger. All those kinds of reactions occur. The teachers say, take the C in reaction and put it at the front of the word, and you get creation. So that transmission of impression means that we learn how to make a pause before we say or act depending on who we're interacting with. So that this pause allows us to make that choice between a reaction and creation. Because if we're able to be governed, if you will, by our mother and our father, if we can use our mother and our father as our inner ruler, then we'll begin to see how to make a transmission of impression. Let's go back to the man on the beach. And the man on the beach, rather than making a choice for lust to be triggered in him in the vision of the woman in a bikini, he could go into the ideas of the goddess energy that she represents, the beauty, the bliss that's involved in a higher level thinking of what that personage brings to that person's unfoldment, to the very person who's viewing, to the very person who's looking. There could be this transmission of impression. So, armed with that, I'm going to bring you to this, because although it's, again, Susan opened my eyes to this, telling me that, when I was excited to bring something to read to her, that it was better if I just gave it to her so that she could read it, because she was a visual person. She visualized. So that gave me a beautiful hint as to when I do want to read something to you, that I ask you to close your eyes and just listen to the words and visualize Machu Picchu as being the place of initiation for Willaroo, and then understand what his words are. I read this article in 1993. It's called The Awakening. When I read it in 1993, I was gobsmacked. It knocked me off my feet, because for me it represented 16 years of study. But what knocked me off my feet when I read it recently was how appropriate it is for the times that we are in. And so I think it important, again, this is foundational, leading us to death and resurrection. But this foundational, I think, allows for a deeper understanding of the things that I seek to speak about in terms of death and resurrection. So I'm going to read to you The Awakening by Willaroo Waita Chasky from Cusco, Peru. And again, I ask you to close your eyes and contemplate the words. Today, after 2,000 years, the sun is rising. Its rays bring health, purity, and wisdom for the healing of all humanity. The ancient Andean people, the Incas, followed the laws of Mother Nature, Pachamama, and the great spirit creator, Pachacamac. They knew the sun to be the center of powerful magnetic energies, whose life each living thing depended upon. Sun rays are the gift of the Great Spirit, giving life and radiance to all of nature. Pachamama is both divine and sacred. She is composed of the 5 elements of moon, sun, earth, water, and air. All learning begins from within. Learning, knowing, respecting oneself. Everything we see around us comes from Pachamama, the Mother Earth. And the invisible comes from the Father Creator, the soul and spirit. Therefore, we must devote our lives to Mother Nature and Father Creator, venerating them and living according to their laws. We have received our physical bodies from Mother Earth and our spiritual body from our Father Creator. Each day we give thanks to the Creator and Mother Earth for our corn and for the work of the nature spirits. Pachamama is our paradise, our glory, and our final place of rest. All people everywhere are children of God, one mother and one father. And therefore we are all brothers and sisters. How happy our parents would be if they could see their children living in peace, naturally, in harmony, according to the laws of nature. When we recognize and respect our natural mother and father, then we are blessed by them and receive their protection from all evil. The return of the Inti Churikuna brings messages of peace, love, and spiritual liberation from our Father Creator, Pachacamac. From the center of the sun to all people everywhere. The sun illuminates our lives, and through the power of this light, we reach the Father Creator. Many Incas incarnated spiritually from the heart of the sun and worked within the laws of Wilcacan Anima, the sacred fire. With love we have come, and with love we have reached God. We must return to the ways of nature and recognize that we are part of the sun, moon, earth, water, and air. That Mother Nature is within us and we within her. Each of our lives are divine temples of Mother Nature and Father Creator. We must return to spiritual principles for our guidance. We must return to the ways of nature, recognizing the earth as our sacred living mother. She knows that we are sick, victims of our egotism, and wishes to heal us with her natural medicines of pure air, clean water, fertility, and solar rays. We must return to the ways of nature and the ways we live each day, eating and drinking naturally fresh foods and drinks without chemicals, avoiding alcohol and drugs, which confuse, dull, and degenerate the mind and body. Mother Nature provides us with the natural foods, beverages, and medicines beneficial to our health and long life, free of disease. The plastic culture is a passing fashion, which will soon subside with the renewal of the spiritual consciousness of the natural solar culture. We must return to the ways of nature and remove the negativity in our lives, the egotism, which blinds us to the beauty of the natural way. Our sleeping consciousness must awaken. Pachamama, Mother Earth, has great sorrow and cries for us. She sees our ignorance, how we are lost in darkness, destroying, out of balance, killing one another. We will only find solutions to our problems when we return again to the natural way. This is the prophecy that was given to us for the last years, giving us the opportunity to save ourselves. Our present era is that of Ayar Oka, the era of iron and wars, of coldness of metal. There is no love. The Western world looks to the atomic god and science both in fear and for its salvation. The so-called civilized ones are suffering in atomic hell. The Intik Churikuna offers love. We must return to the ways of nature to receive illumination, to recognize the cosmic laws in our bodies as temples. When we return to the natural way, the sun way, we will obtain a great spiritual treasure. The door of the sun is open for all. It shines upon all. All blood is the same color, the color of living fire. We are as flowers of different colors, different aromas. We are brothers and sisters of the seven rays. All of the nations of the world from the beginning have had the same natural flag, Kuiche, the rainbow. Her seven colors unify all the nations of God, past, present, and future. Since ancient times, there have been sagras, negative and destructive energies, but they live subject to the Creator and under the control of the children of the sun, where they have limited power. Since pre-Inca times, the sagras were well controlled because the people lived in harmony under the laws of Amalulu, Amaquea, and Amasuya. With the Spanish invasion, the sagras were liberated and became allies of the conquerors. This alliance of black forces subjugated and persecuted the children of the sun, eliminating the wise ones. At this time, the puma in the temple of the sun died, vomiting because it had seen the truth and recognizing the darkness of the invaders. Many, however, were able to escape the dark shadow creeping across the land and remove themselves, and the sacred energy to the jungle, helped by the angels. Here presently they still live among the enchanted lakes and mountains. Inka prophecy holds that with the arrival of the Europeans, there would be 500 years of spiritual darkness. The world would plunge into materialism. Imbalance would permeate the planet, but after 500 years of darkness, when the condor of the south met the eagle of the north, it would signal the return of light to the planet and the dawn of a golden era. We live in a time of the fulfillment of prophecy. The children of the sun have existed since ancient times, since the golden era. After the golden era came the silver era, then the bronze, and then the iron, the present era consisting of the last 1,000 years. This last metallic era has a strong materialistic quality and has been an era of darkness, as people have fallen into egotism, using the forces of Mother Nature in a negative way. Our ancient ancestors had a more defined road with a more concrete, clear, and practical way of life. In the golden era, the cosmic light of the spiritual sun guided the people with the natural laws in harmony, respect, peace, and love. Now in these last years of the Iron Age, all is out of balance, chaotic in disorder and disintegration. The political philosophies of the right and left from Western European culture cannot provide a solution because they are spiritually destitute, as is the age of iron. Even as there are 4 seasons of the year, so the 4 great cosmic ages follow one another. The age of iron, like a long winter, is now closing. The new golden age, like spring, is announcing itself throughout the world. Here in the Andes, we the Incas remember the spiritual teachings which have survived, for there are many ancient remote villages in the mountains, just as there are in the Amazon. This awakened spiritual consciousness, like a beacon of light, shines from the mountains across the world, announcing the arrival of the new era, the golden era of harmony with nature, of peace, brotherhood, spiritual liberation, and love. Wiracocha. Now, despite the fact that it takes a long time to read those 3 pages, I recommend to you downloading The Awakening and reading it to yourself as many times as you can, because there are so many things that are contained therein that are of prophetic nature. The beauty of what it is that we are going towards is really the message of hope that lies within the awakening. The times that we are in presently make this message, the awakening, so appropriate, because that's in fact what we are in, is we are in an awakening, and we are coming to clear choices. Which brings me to the concept of death and resurrection. And of course, I want to say right away that there is no such thing as death. There is simply a transmission or a transmutation, or as the sacrament of the Catholic Church calls, a transfiguration. And death is not anything that we don't know about. In fact, as human beings, one of the most practiced acts is dying. We're all going to die, each and every one of us. But we are not going to be over. We are going to move into something. We are going to transmute into another form. The physical body is but a vehicle for the expression of the divine. The physical body is not who you are. You just simply need to contemplate your own mind to come to the conclusion that really you are your consciousness. And that consciousness, who is you, your identification, is eternal. So the concept of death is really an allegorical one, because it speaks to the dying of something and transforming. You know, the moth weaves threads out of itself and envelops itself, completely imprisoning itself. And yet it has a mechanism within itself that allows to pierce through that web and emerges the butterfly. So the transition, if you will, so-called death, is but a journey. It's just another stage on the journey. I don't know how many people have read the Egyptian Book of the Dead or the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but again, I highly recommend investigating those two treatises. The Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Tibetan Book of the Dead speak to what is called the Bardo, like Bridget Bardo. Only the Bardo that they're referring to is the environment with which we find ourselves in the transition from death to the higher dimensions. And in the Bardo, we have quite an existence. We are surrounded by love, number one. It's always usually difficult to leave the Bardo. But in our quest to expand our consciousness and expand our soul's journey, we make the decision to return into the physical body in order to enhance our soul's journey and in order to elevate the dimensions to which our soul can participate. The drama of what takes place on Good Friday is the drama of the crucifixion, or the death of the Master Jesus. And 3 days later, subsequently, the resurrection. But this is a cosmic drama, one which we'll find displayed in Egyptian rite, going all the way back. Another foundational moment that we should incorporate into this discussion is the idea that the Master Jesus came on the Mother Earth to found the concept of love, wisdom. And preceding the Master Jesus was Buddha. And Buddha came onto the Mother Earth to show wisdom. Now, there are 7 cosmic rays that hit the Mother Earth. And these 7 cosmic rays have characteristics which impact on us. There are 3 rays of attribute and 4 rays of aspect. And the first 3 rays are the dominant ones and that we find in everything. So the first cosmic ray is something called divine will. Very powerful ray. Really withholds itself actually until we reach a higher level. The second cosmic ray is called love wisdom, embedded on the earth through Buddha and the Master Jesus. The third cosmic ray is called active intelligence. The fourth cosmic ray is harmony through conflict. The fifth is concrete science. The sixth is idealism or devotion. And the seventh is ceremonial magic. Each of these rays has a master, a color, a day, a planet, etc. What is happening presently on the Mother Earth is that the sixth cosmic ray, which is idealism or devotion, is waning. And the seventh cosmic ray of ceremonial magic is waxing. Essentially, what we're seeing presently on our Mother Earth is the vibration of the receding and the vibration of the waxing. So that the cosmic energy of the sixth cosmic ray in its withdrawing is pulling out the foundation of the society that we know. And what is waxing is the energy of the golden age to come. So what we are seeing is happening right in front of us. There's this beautiful quote that I came upon Disease is only a form of transient imperfection, and death is just a method for refocusing energy prior to a forward-moving activity, leading steadily and always towards betterment. I notice I've been waxing on here for almost an hour. And so I'm thinking that what I would like to do is give everyone an 8-minute break. Go get yourself a drink, drink of water, etc. And at 3:05, we'll resume, and I'll launch right into death and resurrection. Is that okay with everyone? Nodding of heads. All right, I'll come back at 3:08. However, I'm sure you'll take it well. I'm not sure if the others have come back. So I don't see, of course, the fact that I don't see you doesn't mean anything, does it?
No, it doesn't, honey, but you're not quite at 3:08. I have 3:05.
Oh, did I say 3:08?
Yes, you did.
Oh,
no?
Goodness.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe not. I thought you said 3:08.
No, you're right. You're right. I did say 3:08. Yeah. 3:08 makes 11. So it makes sense.
So hang tight is my suggestion.
I will hang tight. Pardon me? Chill pill.
Are you being invaded?
You saw that?
Yes.
That's my special effects guy. You want to see it again? See the light?
There it is. Okay, I see it.
Isn't that so cool?
Yeah.
I make magic happen. What can I say?
Yeah.
It was enjoyable when he was floating.
Yeah.
So I'm at 3:08. So I'll start it up. In order to discuss the drama of the death and resurrection, we need to contemplate the idea of avatar. So an avatar is, I think, easily described as the expression of the divine in the human form. So that we can say that many avatars have graced their presence on the Mother Earth. Master Jesus was an avatar, Buddha, Krishna, Hercules, Adonis. Many, many personages in antiquity represent the energy of avatar. If we contemplate just for a moment these two avatars, Buddha and the Master Jesus. So Buddha in founding wisdom on the Mother Earth and embedding it into the energy of the Mother Earth, laid down four noble truths: the truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, and the path that leads to the end of suffering. Boy, don't those noble truths sound like they're appropriate for this time? Because in the analysis of those four noble truths and in the analysis of what's happening throughout the world at the one moment in time, these four noble truths are so appropriate. It's unbelievable. Because really what we're talking about here is we're talking about the path that leads to the end of suffering. Because we're at the end of an iron age on our way to a golden age. And so the path to the end of suffering is right in front of us. And the Master Jesus, in displaying to humanity the concept of love, embedded that vibration on the Mother Earth so that the vibration of love, wisdom is here. It's available. It's something that you can avail yourself of. And in that first discussion we had about love versus fear, that's the choice that we come to make, is the choice between love and fear. The Bhagavad Gita says, the Lord declares, whenever true religion declines and irreligion prevails, I manifest myself, and in every age I incarnate to establish spiritual law and to destroy evil. Well, now, the Master Jesus came at the end of an age. It was the end of Aries, and it was on its way to Pisces. And so at the end of an age when the religion became irreligion, the Master Jesus, the avatar, incarnated for the purposes of establishing spiritual laws and destroying evil. Now, the story of the Master Jesus and the death and the subsequent resurrection comes from antiquity. That's why that book I showed you at the very beginning of this, called The Pagan Christ, is so appropriate for your knowing, because it draws upon all the stories of antiquity in relation to avatars that assist us to know something of these personages. Bacchus, Mercury, Hermes, Adonis, or Adonis, however you wish to pronounce it, Buddha, Jesus. All of these personages were avatars, and they all had the same story. This is quite amazing, but within the framework of these avatars, there is a repetition over and over again of certain themes. It was established in the Pagan Christ, for instance, that Jesus was really not born in a manger, but was really born in a cave. And this is a story that's repeated over and over again in relation to avatars. Born in a cave of a virgin mother, being quite advanced as youth, etc. All of these are repeated. And where is it traced to? It's traced to Egyptian rite. And it's the goddess Isis and Horus and Osiris, who essentially have the same story as the Master Jesus. Born of a virgin mother, advanced at an early age, dedicating themselves to spiritual teachings, having a public death and a resurrection. In other words, the story of Christianity is drawn from Egyptian rite, the mysteries of the Egyptians. As you're looking at this scene behind me, which is Machu Picchu, that is a spiritual marker on the Mother Earth of the existence of the divine in human form. The pyramids in Egypt are a sacred marker on the Mother Earth to bring to the attention of humanity the existence of higher dimensions. And in Egypt, many personages were initiated into the mysteries that were designed to teach humanity how to elevate that consciousness. So what, in essence, the Master Jesus came to show was to enact the drama of the 5 initiations to be taken by humanity on the path and on the journey of the raising of the consciousness. The five major initiations for humanity are the following: the birth at Bethlehem, the baptism in Jordan, the transfiguration at Gethsemane, the crucifixion on the mount, and the resurrection and ascension in the cave. In the birth at Bethlehem, we see from the Bible the statement, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. You know, literally, this has been taken by evangelists to speak to the idea of being reborn into the Christian religion. But really that's not what it means. The birth at Bethlehem has something to do with the birth of the Christ consciousness within your heart. This, in essence, is the first initiation for humanity. When humanity, because it's thirsty and is looking and seeking for its relationship to spirit, that's pulling and tugging at it from the idea and desire to get away from the material world, births in themselves the Christ consciousness. Now, one has to appreciate that there is 3 Christs, as taught by Uluru and the Inka. There's the cosmic Christ, there's the historical Christ, and there's the intimate Christ. And we can say that Christ is really the Christos, which is a consciousness. The cosmic Christ is a higher level being in the cosmos. There's actually a hierarchy, the Manu, the Bodhisattva, and the Christ. These 3 are high beings who essentially display incredible knowing of the consciousness of the One. The Christ, in essence, is a personage who was in the Master Jesus. You know, the nomenclature for Jesus is better to say Jesus the Christ rather than Jesus Christ, because what happened to the Master Jesus at the second initiation, which is the baptism, was that the personage, the consciousness of Christ, came into him. And the second initiation, which is known as the baptism, is for humanity the idea of working on our emotions or our egos and quelling out desire, kill out desire for the purposes of stop to feed the egos and direct our consciousness to an inner ruler, the Christ consciousness which we have birthed in our hearts in the first initiation. In the second initiation, what we are doing is we are working on ourselves, on the egos, on the elimination of the egos for the purposes of incarnating at a deeper level the knowing of the essence of the Christ consciousness. The third initiation is called the Transfiguration. And the Transfiguration is moving us from a material mind into a spiritual mind. The idea being that we establish our right mind control or inner ruler, which allows us to begin to see what we need to do in order to become part of the kingdom of the One. The fourth initiation is known as the Crucifixion. And the Crucifixion for humanity is something along the lines of nailing to the cross of matter the egos: lust, pride, anger, envy, greed, laziness, and gluttony. And so taking all of that and nailing it to the cross of materialism frees us, puts to death the egos, and allows us to understand at a higher level what this is about. Sorry for the background interruption there, but it'll take its place. And the fifth initiation for humanity is the resurrection and ascension. The resurrection and ascension, there's a saying in the Bible that says, "O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy destiny?" So in other words, that for humanity, there is such a thing as resurrection and ascension because of the spiritual work that we do on ourselves and the drama that was brought to us by the Master Jesus in the resurrection and ascension, was the idea that there is no such thing as death, that there is only a movement into a higher level of energy, that transition takes place by virtue of the choices that we have made, and bringing ourselves into an understanding of after the crucifixion, after we have nailed to the cross of matter these egos, we are on our way. I just want to review a little bit about the initiations themselves. The first initiation is really prompted by the fact of the existence of your soul. Each and every one of us has a soul, and within the existence of that soul, there is an urge that exists within each of us. And this prepares us for this first initiation, which is the birthing of the infant Christ in ourselves. It's a coming to the realization of the existence of some consciousness which is far superior to the consciousness of materialism. So the divinity in yourself is brought to birth, not only in you, but also in humanity. The opportunity, for instance, what's happening throughout the world right now, is that the contemplation can go to these higher dimensional thinking. And there we bring about the kingdom of the One into the existence of the Mother Earth. The sound for this initiation is the Om. And the Om can be expressed in the three initials, AUM or Aum. And A stands for thought, and U stands for light, and M stands for mystery. So when you're combining the three, the thought, the light, and the mystery, you are now opening the door to the larger understanding of what combination is involved here. So that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. That's thought. And then came the light. And expressing all of this was the mystery of the cosmos, the mysteries of the universe, all available for us to know by virtue of Om. So this is the sound of the first initiation. It has degenerated the Om in humanity to Amen. But its original sound is what we should put into our knowing. The second initiation is the baptism, and this is the purification of the lower nature. You'll notice that when this happened for the Master Jesus, he was 30 years of age. And 30 is really the perfection in the three, the physical, the astral, and the mental. So the 30 signifies that at the point of baptism, he was purifying the lower nature. He was bringing it under control of the inner ruler. And it is said by the teachers that at the time of the baptism for the Master Jesus, the essence of the Christ came into him. And this was his baptism. He had to overcome Maya, glamour, and illusion. And the Maya is represented in the flesh, and the glamour is represented in the world, and the illusion is evidenced in the devil. We have something called the dweller on the threshold. And the dweller on the threshold is something that keeps us away from the actual entrance into the kingdom of one. And the dweller on the threshold is something that we create. It's in essence our personality, our egos. And the dweller on the threshold stands there and goes, no, 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 you don't want to go any further. You stay here, enjoy your materialistic life, enjoy feeding your needs and wants and desires, and stay. The egos do not want to die. They want to continue. And the dweller on the threshold is the one that we created that keeps us from piercing through the veil. The whole story of the Bhagavad Gita is the story of Arjuna being taught by Krishna how to make the choice between the lower and the higher. It is said by the teachers that there are maybe only 3 books that you would need in life in order to understand everything that I'm talking about. They would be the Bhagavad Gita, the scriptures of the New Testament, and the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. If you had these 3 books, you would have the prescription for the path that leads to the end of suffering. In the 3rd initiation, which is the Transfiguration, we have in the birth of the Christ in our heart, we have the appearance of God. In the Transfiguration, we have the quality of God. And in the resurrection, we have the life aspect of divinity. So we are making these steps in relation to these initiations. This brings about a transfigured personality. So that the 3rd initiation of Transfiguration is designed to bring us into a change of how we think and how we feel and how we act. It's quite an unusual relationship between the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th. The 1st, the new birth, is initiation. The 3rd, which is Transfiguration, is revelation. And the 5th, which is resurrection, is completion. So in the beginning, the 1st initiation is the beginning. The 2nd initiation is the transition. And the 5th initiation is the consummation. And therefore you have in the 1st initiation the appearance, and you have in the 3rd the quality, and you have in the 5th the life. Transmutation or transfiguration is the passage across from one state of being to another through the agency of fire. So understand that from a perspective, there is a book written by Alice Bailey. It's about this thick. It's about 1,000 pages. It's called A Treatise on Cosmic Fire. And its basic premise is that God is fire. You'd have to read the book to really get the essence of what I'm speaking about there, but contemplate this for a moment. In the indigenous tradition, the sacred fire is something that is revered. The sacred fire keeper in the tribe is one of the most advanced. As far as the tribe is concerned, he is the keeper or she is the keeper of the sacred fire. And what does the sacred fire represent? It represents the sun. It represents the life giver. It represents the life giving of the sun. And so the fire is considered to be sacred in that it replicates the sacred sun or the sacred divine sun, which hides behind the physical sun that we see. In essence, we are all sparks from the divine sun. We came into existence as a spark from that divine sun, and we came out into this dimension, into this part of the creation for the purposes of experience. And the path on the return is that we are returning to the central sun, to the central spiritual sun. That's the path of return. What we're talking about here is the drama of this. In every human being, there are three fires. You have the fire of the head, you have the fire of the heart, and you have the fire of the loins. The fire of the head is electric. You know, if you don't have the synapses going in the brain, nothing's going to go on. You have the fire of the heart. Again, you have electricity that keeps the heart going, and that's solar fire. And you have the fire by friction. And you'll notice that the fire of the loins is really, the reference point is sacral center. The sacral center, this is where the word sacred comes from. Back to the second teaching of the Inca, speaking to sacred alchemy. They're speaking about the fire of the sacral center being transmuted from low nature desire into higher level communication of the one. In order to understand the transfiguration aspect and the third initiation, which is critical to your understanding, there are two important, one important point that needs to be understood. In bringing ourselves into the understanding of how we can advance, we should come in touch with the concept of harmlessness. Overriding everything in relation to our advancement is the idea of harmlessness in thought, word, and deed. When we come to the realization that judgment and criticism are like an arrow that we throw out that is inevitably going to come back to ourselves, we will begin to reduce our understanding and our own participation in judgment and criticism. When we begin to understand negative thinking that we throw out and that we allow to go from our minds and our inner ruler out into the universe, inevitably, like an arrow that has been launched, it will come back to us. So harmlessness in thought, word, and deed is a critical piece in the third initiation of transfiguration. Now I come to the fourth initiation, which is crucifixion. There's deep understanding and deep metaphorical meaning to the cross, and one has to begin to understand that the Catholic version of the cross, with the Master Jesus nailed to the cross, is of most recent vintage, but the cross itself is not. The cross is an ancient symbol. And it is explained in somewhat these terms. The cross is essentially, on the vertical path, of course, it represents the idea of the one path into the higher dimensions. And on the horizontal, it represents being captured in the material world and the consciousness remaining sleeping and not understanding that it has to orient the consciousness into this higher level. And the cross represents, if you will, the nailing of the egos to the cross of materialism. But in antiquity, let's go back to Egyptian rite, you will see that in hieroglyphics, they carried what's called the Ankh. And the Ankh was really a cross with a circle at the top. The cross represents the four cardinal directions that we can see as being in the following. The four cardinal fixed directions are Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus. So the cross was represented as being something that's in the cosmos, that's a heavenly representation in the constellations, that this cross is represented in those four fixed signs. You'll find the representation of these cardinal signs as follows. Aquarius is the face of man and is known as the water carrier. So that the representation of the zodiacal sign of Aquarius is the man with the water on his head, the bowl of water. Leo is the lion, which is self-consciousness. Scorpio is the eagle, and we associate the eagle with the serpent, or the serpent of illusion. And Taurus is the ox and represents the mysteries of Egypt. That, in other words, what we come to understand, if we go back into Egyptian mystery and Egyptian rite, we'll find that Isis, the goddess Isis, was always represented as veiled and a crown of 12 stars, holding a baby, which was Horus. And this is identical to the vision of the Virgin Mary holding the baby Jesus and the halo about her head. You'll also notice that the Statue of Liberty is essentially 12 stars and holding out the light, which is really a representation of the goddess Isis. Now, isn't that amazing that the goddess Isis, I-S-I-S, that word was on the lips of everyone 2 years ago when this group or terrorist group known as ISIS, the acronym ISIS, came out, and it was on the lips of everyone, bringing back the memory of the cosmic goddess Isis, who is a representation of the Virgin Mary. And the same story is told in relation to that. In the stories of the mother of all of these avatars, the name was always Mary or Myra. The story was repeated in all these saviors and avatars. The statement can be made that Christianity is a restatement of very old doctrines. And when we're talking about the concept of the Master Jesus having 12 apostles, what we're talking about is really an allegorical tale for the Master Jesus participating in the 12 signs of the Zodiac. And that these four fixed crosses that I spoke about, which are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, and their representation of faces, man, lion, ox, and eagle, you'll find that repeated in the book of Revelations, which prophesizes the ages of the past and those to come. But they talk about the four beasts, which are man, lion, ox, and eagle. So that the crucifixion, in essence, is a cosmic story about the participation of an avatar in a cosmic event, demonstrating to humanity their existence in the cosmos, the impact of the constellations in relation to them. And notice this, that when the Master Jesus came, he was a fulfillment of what the Bhagavad Gita said, that in every age when religion descends into irreligion, I incarnate and I come to establish the spiritual law. So the Master Jesus came at the end of Aries and the beginning of Pisces. And it would appear that we are coming to the end of an age, leaving Pisces and going into Aquarius. And so the story of the death on the cross is a dramatic enactment of Egyptian mystery and Egyptian rite that leads us into the promise of the resurrection. If you look at the thesis that is expounded in the Pagan Christ, you will see it said that in all the fixed cross of the world saviors, they have all been eternally crucified as a reminder to man of the divine intent based upon the idea of sacrifice. The path for the souls to ascension is through the 12 signs of the Zodiac. You can look back at astrological placement at the time of the birth of the Master Jesus. So Virgo had the star in the east, which is Sirius, and the three kings, which are signified by Orion's belt. So the Master Jesus came to liberate us from the concept of matter and demonstrate to those in the world that we could bring a new world into existence by the point of sacrifice of our egos into and onto the cross of matter. Death is the prelude of a life of renewal. And it is said that a man must die in himself in order for the inner Christ to be revealed. We must subject the lower nature to the death on the cross. That brings me to the fifth initiation, which is resurrection and ascension. Crucial to the initiation for humanity is the fourth. Only when we have mastered the significance of service and sacrifice can the fact of immortality and its true meaning be revealed to us. Now think about those words. I said at the beginning that really the drama of the Master Jesus is a mortal play on immortality. Because essentially what we're doing is we're striving to bring ourselves into a level of perfection, into a level of love and service through the crucifixion that will bring us to the level of resurrection and ascension. I spoke about the Sacred Valley in Machu Picchu. In the Sacred Valley, there are all these kinds of sacred sites that go from Cusco all the way to Machu Picchu. And at these various sacred sites, one would, a man and a woman would work on their spiritual advancement, and they would stay at one spiritual place for 3-4 years and then go down the valley to another one for 3 or 4 years and crisscross down the valley until they came here to Machu Picchu. And Machu Picchu is known as the University of Ascension, because by the time you had reached Machu Picchu, you had hopefully developed into a state of knowing that raised your consciousness into this idea of ascension. The Master Jesus came to show that death cannot hold the Savior, that death cannot defeat the immortality of achievement when the consciousness has been raised. The process then of evolution and initiation is the divine life present in each of us. Jesus was first to enact the whole of the ceremonial rites and rituals publicly, giving to humanity a demonstration of divinity expressed in you and I. So that the cosmic drama that he was playing was to demonstrate this transition from the death syndrome into the resurrection and ascension syndrome, which was brought about by our own evolutionary work and our own initiation. There's a beautiful tome that I highly recommend to all of you that would enhance your knowing of the concept of death. It is written by Alice Bailey, and it is called Death, the Great Adventure. And it puts a whole new twist on the concept of death, bringing one into the knowing of these higher dimensional understandings of what death truly is. The Bhagavad Gita says this: certain is the death of what is born, and certain is the birth of what dies. Therefore, deign not to grieve in a matter that is inevitable. This Lord of the body dwells ever immortal in the body of each. The Tibetan Book of the Dead said, the process of death as that of entering into the clear, cold light. The Tibetan Yoga and Secret Doctrine said, when the Lords of Compassion shall have spiritually civilized the earth and made of it a heaven, there will be revealed at the pilgrim the endless path, which readies to the heart of the universe man, then no longer man, will transcend nature and impersonally yet consciously in at-one-ment or atonement, at-one-ment with all. The enlightened ones help to fulfill the law of the higher evolution, of which nirvana is but the beginning. Pretty impressive, I'd say. I'm finding myself coming to the point then of saying that the cosmic drama in relation to the death and resurrection of the Master Jesus is a cosmic event. It is something that takes place in the cosmos, and all of the vibration filters down. As we're coming to a new age, then we are coming to the part of the drama of moving from Pisces into Aquarius. We should be mindful of our own role in the death and the resurrection of the material world within ourselves. Come to the realization that we can make this happen. I'm going to bring this to an end by reading something that our son Sean sent us from Cranbrook last week, and then I'll open it up for commentary or anybody who wants to speak. And this is a quote from, I don't know the source, but this was the quote. I received a message from the dolphins and whales last night. If there really is a virus or a deep state that is trying to control us, it is only a representation of our own darkness. We are all one mind and heart, and any darkness that exists is only possible because it also exists inside of us. The reason our 3D humanity is in the perceived crisis is because we have been living in duality and separation. However, believe that the world is controlled by those with, humans believe that the world is controlled by those with money. Your infinite consciousness knows that this is simply not true. Money is just an energy. It is not true power. The only true power is that which comes from our eternal soul, love. Moving forward, the only way to heal this world is to have the courage to look inside our own darkness and to truly love, accept, and forgive ourselves. The mirrors of the world reflect back what needs to heal. What we hate in others exists inside of us. Looking at our shadows to unite with our light and become whole. This will shift the collective vibration into its highest timeline. And so I say namaste, Wiracocha. I appreciate and love you all. Thank you. And so, anyone wishes to make commentary, just open your mic and go.
Thank you.
Michael?
Okay.
There's Sue. Hi, Sue.
Hi.
Michael, thank you so much for all of the preparation you did, all your years of dedicated study, and bringing us and your willingness to share so generously with that. I thought you did a really amazing job of tying in Willaru's teachings on the Inca in Peru and the fourth dimension, and then tying that, as we know, strong relationship between the sacred sites in Peru and those in Egypt and in many parts of the world, and the various pagan traditions that are cyclical in belief. So I really appreciated that.
It's okay, honey. You can leave it.
Yeah, and just to say that I highly recommend those who are, interested in seeing the relationship, the linkage from Egyptian rite all the way through, to get a copy of the Pagan Christ. It's a beautiful scholarly academic work which traces this, and particularly through those two authors, Gerald Massey and Albert Boyd Kuhn. The work that they did, and both of those authors, particularly Kuhn, were vilified and looked upon as being like out there, but they really nail it. They nail the historical relationship. And then, yes, what always struck me about, I had studied all those kinds of things, and then when Willaroo came along, and Willaroo opened our eyes to this relationship between the Inca and Christianity and Buddhism and Hinduism and Mohammedanism and Judaism, it was stunning.
In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, there's one version that's written by a woman named Normandy Ellis, who has a long tradition with Egypt and studied the hieroglyphs. And she took it, rather than just a straight literal translation, she felt into the heart of the message. And it's a very beautiful poetic prose, which I think you would enjoy. I sat often at one of the, runes, often by Amun-Ra or something, and just read some within the book. And it's very powerful.
Can you say her name again?
Yeah, it's Norman B.B.I. Ellis, E-L-L-I-S.
Norman B. Ellis.
Yeah, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. So she has I think, taken it from its sterility and breathed life into it. Like, there's one line that I constantly go back to, which is, I stand amazed in the presence of God. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Mary Louise, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Michael, thank you. Thank you, first of all, for, the other night and today. It's been powerful. A couple of things. The first is, so many people talk about this as being apocalyptic times, and I came across something the other day about apocalypse. The word is from the Greek meaning unveiling and revelation.
Mm.
And that was really powerful for me. I thought, wow, that's because so often we think of it being as so foreboding and the doom and gloom, and it's like, oh my gosh, absolutely is it an unveiling and a revelation at this time, which ties so much into what you've been saying all along. And the only other question I had was when you speak about avatars and a certain avatar coming at the, I believe I'm saying this right, that you were saying that it's coming at the end of one age and into another, you know, Buddha, Master Jesus. Yeah, what are your thoughts on now as we are moving into Aquarius here? It's just interesting because, you know, they talk about the second coming, but what are your thoughts on an avatar, or is it different? Is it more about the collective?
No, it's about both. There is an avatar coming. All of the religions speak to it, but the teachers will say that it's Lord Maitreya, and Lord Maitreya is the coming one. I have a particular meditation practice that I follow, and each month we have a seed thought. And our seed thought for last month was, forget not the past, yet press anew into the glory of the coming one. That's pretty cool. Forget not the past, yet press anew into the glory of the coming one. So go back to the signs of the Zodiac again, and, you know, contemplate that each sign of the Zodiac is about 2,100 years. So each one represents a sidereal year of 26,000 years when you do the math of 12 signs of the Zodiac. And the Bhagavad Gita says very clearly that in each new age I incarnate, I come into amongst humanity to establish the spiritual laws. And so yes, definitely the avatar is coming. Press anew into the glory of the coming one. And this is Lord Maitreya, who will be the avatar of the Aquarian age. The timing of that is known to cosmic beings, but I'm not plugged into it. I don't know the time, but I do know that time is here. And that what I mean by that is that we're in the time of purification. And in that time of purification, that purification is for the purposes of establishing a vibration on the Mother Earth, which can accommodate the environment of the avatar. So we're on the musical scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We're going from one vibration to another vibration. All of this is evidenced in the changes on the Mother Earth that take place on a daily basis now. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes. You know, Willaroo explained it this way. He said, you know, you have to understand that throughout the Mother Earth is fire. The Mother Earth is filled with fire, and this is goes through all the veins of the Mother Earth. And the exit points for the fire are volcanoes and things like hot springs. And we, in essence, are witnessing the rebirth of the Mother Earth. So the Mother Earth is actually in her period, and she is creating a sacred birth canal for the avatar to come. We, in essence, are midwives. We put ourselves in the consciousness of the rebirthing of the Mother, of the regeneration of the Mother, for the purposes of accommodating the glory of the coming one. And so
that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's where it's at. That's essentially, we're midwives. And so as that's why Willaroo's article on the awakening is so beautiful, because he's basically saying, look, return to the ways of nature, become one with the Mother, You know, the mother gives us everything. This is what the Algonquin elder said to me. He said, you know, Mother Earth gives us everything. She gives us food, she gives us shelter, she gives us clothing, and the only thing we have to give back is our behavior. And we're wanting in that regard. So when we were talking about the initiations, everybody on the Mother Earth is in initiation, whether they know it or not. They're in initiation. There's three halls: the hall of ignorance, the hall of learning, or of knowing, knowledge, and the hall of wisdom. And all of us go through these halls. And where do we find the door out of the hall of ignorance into the hall of knowledge? And where do we find the door of the hall of knowledge into the hall of wisdom? It's all an inner journey. And I make that inner journey through the initiations that I spoke about: the birth of the Christ within, the baptism, the transfiguration, the crucifixion, the resurrection. These are all initiatory rites that you're going to find in Egyptian rite. You're going to find these things in the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Tibetan Book of the Dead. So all of the undertaking of humanity, here you are really the perceived crisis that we are in, as that statement said, that dream from the dolphins, that the dolphins and the whales told that person. The idea that it is perceived crisis, and whether it's a virus or a play for control, it doesn't matter, because there is a much bigger cosmic event underway that you are participating in. When all of us were in the Bardo, in between the last incarnation and this incarnation, we all made an agreement that we would be here at this time, because each and every one of us, if we put ourselves into the knowing of this, are way showers. Midwife, way showers.
Michael, one of the things that I really appreciated about Willaru's teaching on in the awakening was his absolute focus on the role of the mother of the earth. And I was listening to a speaker yesterday who was so connected to the role of the earth and absolutely compelling about the need for each of us to do our own connection with the earth, to clear out the shadows within us, because all of our collective shadows are what's playing out on the surface right now. And so as each of us takes ownership of that and looks after that part, I think we'll be more the stewards of that ushering in, the midwifery, the midwives of ushering in that new avatar.
Yes.
Ourselves even.
Yes, I resonate with that 100%. And it is, again, this concept of vibration. You know, from the cosmos flow the 7 cosmic rays. And those 7 cosmic rays wax on us. The constellations and the energy from the constellation wax on us. The 7 sacred planets that surround the Mother Earth wax on us. And what they are demonstrating is that this vibration is being increased, and this level of the existence of the veil between the 3rd and 4th dimension is thinning. And so we are moving inexorably much more closely to the concept of a heavenly earth. And this is what we should take solace from. This is what should energize us, in fact, within this crisis, to understand the role that we can play. And the role that we can play is to do our work. This crisis afforded us in this family the opportunity of doing a weekly call on Sunday with all the members of the family. We have some in Montreal, we have some in Cranbrook, British Columbia. And so Susan and I's 2 children, plus the 3 from my first marriage, so the 5 children, we get together on Zoom, and we've agreed to do a meditation every day at noon together. So no matter where you are, you stop at noon if you can, and you do the meditation. So we've enhanced our connection through meditation, and therefore created, because the space has been made for us, we've created an exercise that allows for that to deepen the connection amongst us and the service that we can render to humanity. And that's everything that all of us can do. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
I believe there's a question on the chat.
I don't see it though. Who sees that?
Yeah, the question is, do you recognize Samuel as avatar of the Aquarian age and Lord Maitreya as the avatar as we enter the Golden Age?
Yes, answer yes. Yes. Samael on War is identifies himself as the avatar of the Aquarian age, and the concept being that that's a period of 2,000 years, and the Golden Age can be as long as 1,000 years of that time. So yes, the answer is yes. Samael on War. Well, for my money, he was a Kogi. He's born in Colombia. He founded the International Gnostic Movement. He's written many, many books. He's Willaru's guide. And Samael Aoun-Weor's books are very deep and profound, wherein he identifies himself as the avatar of the Aquarian age. Highly recommend reading his books. The relationship between Willaru and Samael is like that. It's very strong. And many, many teachings come from him. The reason I say he's a Kogi, I came to know about the Kogi, many years ago. They live in Santa Marta, Columbia Range. The masters, who live at about 16,000 feet, we wouldn't be able to be with them. Our vibration is too low and their vibration is too high. And they identify themselves as the elder brothers and us as the younger brothers. And in the BBC documentary on the Kogi clearly say, you as the younger brothers have no respect for the Mother Earth. You're destroying her and you're causing all sorts of problems for all of us and putting us, the advanced ones, in danger. From the way I see it, I believe Samael Aoun-Weor was told by the Kogis to go off the mountain and into society and teach. And I really think that Samael Aoun-Weor's lineage is with the Kogis. And the Kogis are advanced ones, steeped in the spiritual knowing of where things are going. The Kogi are in Colombia. Then you can go to the Himalayas and you'll find equally advanced, I would call them ascended masters, who reside at the Tibetan, Dwal Kul, Kutumi, and the list just goes on and on. The Master Jesus, as I understand it, has his own retreat in the Himalayas. So,
would you spell that name of Samuel?
Yeah, Samael is S-A-M-A-E-L, A-E-L, not U-E-L, but A-E-L. Aoun is A-U-N, and Weor is W-E-O-R. And you can find online now. This is amazing. When Susan and I first were with Willaru, we came to know of Samael and his works. And we, I think it would have been 10 years ago or so, had to drive to Salem, Massachusetts to get copies of his books. They were nowhere to be found. We had to track it down to a place in Massachusetts. And 5 years ago, all of his works went up on the internet. So they're precious, precious books. Did you say hit on the chat thing? Where's the chat thing?
If you hover your cursor at the bottom of the screen, Michael, the stuff should come up and chat will be over.
Envelope, oh, so that one there, it looks like a
Mhm.
bed. No. Oh, there.
And Diana kindly typed in Samael's name.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, perfect. Okay.
So what do you then want to, what would you say then about Lord Maitreya? Did I miss that, Michael?
No, the question was, is Lord Maitreya then the avatar of the Golden Age? And I'm saying yes. Aquarius being 2,000 or so years, and the Golden Age being about 1,000 years.
So you would agree that that's the avatar that's coming?
Correct. I mean, there are many avatars, right? There are many avatars. I want to recommend something really, really highly to everyone's knowing. This book I mentioned in the meditation last week, the book called The Goddess Among Us. And it's the title of it is The Goddess Among Us, Anananda Mayi Ma. So Anananda is Ananda Mayi, and Ma is Ma. I found the book on Kindle, but it's a glorious outline of the divine expressed in this woman who was born in India. I think she left her physical body in 1986. So I think it was late 1800s that she was born in India, but immediately evidenced to her parents and those around her that she was an avatar, that she was the expression of the divine in the human form. And the story of her life is a gorgeous, beautiful story.
What is the title of the book again, Michael? Sorry.
A Goddess Among Us. And her name is Anananda Mayi Ma, which, by the way, means permeated bliss mother. That's what Anananda Mayi Ma means, permeated bliss mother. And the reason, of course, I'm saying that is about that book and about her is because this whole concept of the reflection of the feminine, of the matriarchal, of the feminine energy is really what I find I'm putting myself in touch with for the purposes of a deeper understanding of what it is that we're doing spiritually. Ma says, if you can repeat the name of the Lord, and you can pick any name you want, Krishna, Jesus, Hare Krishna, you name it, you can take any name, her name. She even says, if you say my name and you desire deeply what it is that you desire will come. But she says the repetition of the name of the version of the Lord that you have in your mind, if you can remember to do this when you're having idle thoughts, you'll find the impact on your life will be quite incredible. So I think that that does it.